I used to tell stories all the time. There was a girl named Kimmy who lived on Patrick Street near me in North Braddock, and she's all grown up now and she has kids of her own, but she still has nightmares from a wookalore coming after her late at night. I don't even know what a wookalore is because I just made it up. When I was 11 years old, I was one of the oldest kids on my street. And on summer nights, we would all gather on the wall. There was a big wall on our street, and we would tell stories. Can you guys imagine that? We would actually tell stories. We didn't text and we didn't tweet. We looked at each other and told stories. Isn't that cool? People actually did that. It was a really neat thing. It was a lot of fun. And we used to use whole sentences that would become paragraphs and then become epic tales. It was more than 6 words at a time. It was so great. We loved telling stories. So anyway, one evening, I had told a really gruesome tale about a creature called a wookalore that just happened to live in the sewers underneath Kimmy's house. And I just sort of happened to mention in the story, in great detail, how wookalores could actually come up through the sewers and then up through the toilet in your house if somebody left the seat up, and she had 3 brothers. So she was terrified by that. So anyhow, I finished the story in great detail, and I went on and on about this horrible creature, and then I said, good night, and then I headed home. I only had about a block to go home, but usually when I tell these stories, I would really freak myself out. So like every tree and fire hydrant I would think was a monster, so I would run as fast as I could, get home, go under the covers, and go, Joe, get down here right now! And I come downstairs, and it was Kimmy's mom. And Kimmy's mom, I got on the phone, and she said, Joe, Kimmy will not go to sleep. Will you tell her you made that story up and it's not true? So they put me on the phone, and I said, Kimmy, now that you told, they're going to get you. And I hung up the phone. That story had an enormous impact on her life. Number 1, everybody in her family makes sure they put the toilet seat down. And number 2, every time she sees me, she smacks me. But it had that great impact. So I'd always been telling stories. But in truth, I wasn't reading many stories. You see, I was making them all up. Every last one of them I made up because I'm dyslexic. When I was a kid, reading was absolutely excruciating. It was really, really tough. Writing was near impossible. I had such a tough time. I actually had to fake my way through up till about 3rd grade. I was able to fake my way through because picture books weren't tough to fake, especially fairy tales. You've got once upon a time, something happened, happily ever after, and you can fake the rest. It was pretty standard. It was easy to do. And my imagination was sort of always better than what they could write for me. That was until Dr. Seuss. See, Dr. Seuss, on the other hand, was a true lunatic. What on earth was going on in these stories? What is that cat doing? What is that? I had no choice but to learn how to read just so I could understand Dr. Seuss. I could not make up stuff in my head that was nearly as good as what he was making up for me. So I had to find out what it was. I was going to have to learn how to read. And I was going to have to learn how to write, too. Now, this is not an easy task when your letters literally move around on the page. I had no control over them. Now, there was very little known about dyslexia at that time. Remember, this is the Dark Ages. This is the 1970s. Nobody had any idea. And I went to a Catholic school. So being left-handed is what they blamed on everything. I was left-handed. So being left-handed meant I was uncoordinated, ill-suited for society, and probably possessed. No, that I could not be taught. So she taught me. You know, I've come to believe over the years there's really not such a thing as learning disabilities. Just teaching disabilities. It's not that you can't teach these kids, it's just we don't have the time or the resources to teach to individual children in the way they need to be taught. The way that reaches them. But Mrs. Flowers took the time. She said something simple that changed the way I saw the world. She said, stop writing words and start drawing them. Something in my brain clicked. I could draw anything. I had complete control over drawings. I just couldn't write. But they were both basically simple lines. At that point, I began to see and create words as images. Every single word was a picture, and every picture told a story. I became an avid reader. I devoured all the stories I could. By 8th grade, I had read every page of my encyclopedia. Does anybody know what an encyclopedia is? Good, okay. It's on a CD-ROM this big. I'm going to put some letters at the top of my page. Here they go. A, J, E, U, I, O, B, N, G, period, and a dash. Can anybody tell me what that spells? Very nice try. No, I'm going to give you a hint. It is a very popular animal. I'm going to give you another hint. The letters are scrambled and mixed up. Anybody know? Yes, sir. What is it?
Jaguar?
No, good guess. All right, I'm going to give the answer. That spells rabbit. See, I told you I see the world in a different way. You are used to writing words. I'm going to show you how to draw a word. Watch, listen, learn. You'll be able to draw a rabbit too. Once upon a time, there was an animal. Animal begins with letter A. This particular animal loved to jump. Jump begins with J, so I put a J under the A to make an umbrella because it liked to jump in the rain. It liked to jump forwards and it liked to jump backwards. So I put the letter J backwards. It liked to jump everywhere. Everywhere begins with E. It liked to jump everywhere. And it liked to jump every day, which also begins with E. It liked to jump under. Under begins with U, so put a U under the J. It liked to jump in. In begins I, so put I in the U. It could even do the 100-yard dash. Now, if something likes to jump under, it might like to jump over. Over begins O, put O over and to the left of the A. If something likes to jump in, it might like to jump out. Out begins O, put an O out here. And it would never, ever stop, period. A period here, and a period here. Now, this particular rabbit had very, letter B, very, letter B again, messy hair. In fact, he was a messy hair. Messy begins with M, so I take the letter M over and over until it becomes messy square. Now, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that this rabbit was great. Great begins with G, and I said stretch, so I'm going to take the letter G and stretch it. And everyone loved this rabbit. Everyone begins with E. Now, the reason everyone loved this rabbit was because this rabbit was so good, letter G backwards too. Everyone letter E backwards. This rabbit had a very fuzzy face that looked like this, and very, very long whiskers. And oh, what a good and great rabbit he was. Now, how to draw a rabbit. I announced to everyone at the museum that I would be embarking on a national tour. I had a list of 20 venues in 12 states that I would perform at in over a 3-week period. It was ambitious and a little bit crazy. The venues included the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival and the Indianapolis Children's Museum, 2 of the most prestigious venues in the country. The director of the Pittsburgh Children's Museum at that time immediately told me that I was out of my league and I should rethink the tour. It wasn't going to work. All 20 of the venues that I booked me. They all wanted to have me there. The tour introduced my storytelling and illustrations nationwide, well beyond Pittsburgh. Sometimes I succeeded in life not in spite of people, but just a little bit to spite people. I loved proving I could do things that everyone thought I couldn't.